So do you work up most of your material on the road?
Wherever I work, it all gets worked out on stage.
It's neat watching you do it because it's so different than what a lot of comedians do. Whereas like even me, I have to write stuff first. I have to sit down and kind of go into that flow state and write for a long time and then start breaking it down. But since I talked to you, though, what I'll do is I'll write it all out, and then I'll just start working on it, sort of like improvising it.
Yeah, it's gotta come out the way you talk. Otherwise, you're just reading. You know
right.
what I mean? And I say this all the time. I said it to, I think it was J.D. Etheridge, and he got mad at me. But I was like, I think everybody at the open mic, because everybody at the open mic is not great. You know what I mean? I'm like, I think everybody at the open mic is a better writer than I am. You know what I mean? Like, and I really do. I think I'm a better comic than most everybody, and I think I'm one of the best comics in the state. But everybody, literally everybody, like you guys are better writers than me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a good writer. I'm not good at it. And maybe I'm not good at it because I don't try to be good at it, but it just doesn't work for me. What happens is I have a thought, and I'll just scribble it somewhere, and then when I get home, I'll put it on my whiteboard. And I got those all around my apartment. I look like a serial killer. And I'll just write an idea, be 1 to 5 words. It would be a word or a sentence. And I just look at it. I train myself to like sneak a peek. And then because I have OCD and compulsive thoughts, I replace whatever shitty thought I was supposed to have with an idea. And now while I'm doing the dishes, vacuuming, whatever, I'm thinking about that thing for 15 minutes compulsively until I shift to another thing. And then by the time it gets set on stage, I never force it on stage. Sometimes I'll take a look at my phone to see, I'll scroll through a list of ideas. But I don't write set lists. I just have ideas in my head. And then when I go on stage, if it hits me, I say it out loud. And by the time it gets said out loud, it's either never been thought of or it's been thought of for 4 hours. And if I've thought of it for 4 hours and I can't come up with 30 seconds of funny out of it, that's a problem, right? But that's a skill that I have. So usually it comes out all right, and then I trim it back. And one of the issues I think people have is they try to overcreate. It's like if you're trying to produce something, you don't have to do it all in one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially for like open mics. Like, so for open mics, you're doing 3, 4, 5 minutes a shot, right? And so everybody thinks, well, it's the same people every week and it's the same da-da-da. I got to write a new 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm like, no, you really don't. Write a new 30 seconds. If you write a new 30 seconds every week, at the end of the year, you have 26 minutes. It's almost a half hour, which is impossible. If you have a half hour at the end of the year, you're really fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the new batch of comedians in the last 10 years doing a new hour every year is, it shouldn't be happening. You know what I mean? And some of it's bad and some of it's great. Bill Burr doing a new special every year is fantastic, and he's amazing at it, but he's gifted. He's not the rest of us, you know what I mean? So putting that pressure on ourselves is crazy. A new half hour every year in the early 90s, you would have been a fucking savant, you know what I mean? Yeah. So for you to say you got to write a new 4 minutes 52 times a week is insane.
Yeah.
You know, so if you write that 30 seconds, that's what I tell everybody, just get one new laugh every time you go on stage. And so if you see me go on stage and I start looking up, I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm just...
I can see you processing the thoughts. It's really interesting.
If you ever see me giggle on stage, it means that's never been said. It's never been said, and I've never thought it before. And that's my favorite. I start giggling. I'm like, oh, here we go. We got something. And then what I do is... The trick to that is to fuck yourself. Like, talk until it's not funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you would think, let me say the funny thing. All right, let's find something else funny. It's like, no.
You're trying to realize the thought.
Let me drive this to exhaustion into the ground till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
And then I'll go home and I'll listen to it. And I'll pull it back a little bit. I'll strip out a bunch of shit. And I got a new laugh. And now... I don't have to write that down. I listen to it. It's in my head. I committed it to memory. The next time I'm talking about anything that's remotely close to that thing might come out. The amount of times I've been on stage and a joke I wrote 2 years ago or a thought I had I don't really write jokes, but the thought I had 2 years ago comes up because it just found a home with this thing is like, oh, I love that. It's my favorite thing in the world.
That's amazing. That's a really unique skill, though. I think that's like specific to you.
I think so, but I can also like I like figuring out how other people write.
Yeah.
You know,
like
and
for me, writing is like the easy part, like the
Yeah.
enjoyable part. Like I'll have the ideas, like the premise, and I'll constantly put notes in my phone for new premises that I'll have during the day, like have a funny thought or something. And but like last night, I sat down and wrote for a couple of hours, and I'll just write out the whole premise, like all my thoughts about this.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I'll start going through each section of it and seeing, where I can veer off from it, and if there's funny parts in it.
Do you highlight anything?
I don't.
Use a highlighter. Go through it and see if anything makes you giggle. Highlight it.
I separate the things.
Right.
So like if it's something I feel like it's a funny thing, I'll separate it and sort of highlighting it. It's
you know what worked for me, like helped me like a crazy amount, and now I kind of do it mentally. But when I was first started doing it as a physical, it happened on accident. I like notebooks, but I'm not a big fan of having my shit on different pages.
My writing is shit too, so I type.
Right, yeah. But so, like, if I have a joke about A on this page and 4 or 5 pages later, B, those two things don't exist in the same world. The other one, cognitive dissonance, one's gone when the other one exists, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I put every bit I had on one giant piece of poster board.
Oh.
And then I took every bit off of that, and I started making categories on another poster board. So if a joke was about my family, it just went family. If it was about shit in my pants, it goes here, whatever, right? And then anything that overlaps into 2 sections goes in both sections. And what that means is that one joke is a transition from that section to the other section.
Yeah.
And that's how you start building like really long.
I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all my stuff is kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
It's
You do a
observation.
little bit longer form.
Yeah. So like I do the same thing. So I have all my bits in separate files.
Right.
Each bit's written out separately, but then one bit's going to tie into another one somehow.
Yeah.
And I'll put that one right before the other one. So on my main set list or whatever, I have like the bits in order based on how they transition.
Do you
to
ever
the other
like
ones.
halfway through a bit think about another bit just randomly?
All the time? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever just do it right there?
Yeah. Well, I'll move them too. I'll move stuff
But
around.
I mean, when you're doing the bit and you think about that other bit, do you ever just call an audible and do the bit you thought of?
I'm too new.
Yeah.
I have.
I'm telling you, do that.
I've had those thoughts on stage.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Learning how to take the filter off.
Yeah.
And
I'm still in my head a little bit.
Yeah, but so that's how to get out of your head is building trust with yourself. Your brain is reminding you that bit exists,
right?
Because it wants to survive.
Well,
your brain doesn't want to go home with a bomb. Your brain does not want to go home and overthink this. Believe me, your brain wants to go home, jerk off, and have a fun night. You know what I mean? It doesn't want to be sad that night. So if the brain thinks of that thing, it wants you to do that bit because it's probably the right thing to do right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the best thing you do is like trust yourself and just like think about it. Realize, oh, this is fun that I had this thought that I'm to this level where I'm computing.
Yeah.
And then just fucking the easiest way to get into it, just go about doing it. Even if you got to cut the bit you're in off, cut it off. But if you can transition it, it's just that when that stuff starts happening, it's just fucking really fun, man.
I remember the first couple times I went up, I couldn't even see the audience.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know what was happening in the room. It was just like the nerves were just overwhelming.
For sure.
And
it's
then
not natural.
Yeah, but then after several times, it's like, oh, okay, I can actually interact with these people and see what they're doing and actually pay attention to stuff that's happening while I'm doing my
Reading the room
bit.
is important. Yeah, I mean, I could have done my first 3 years without a crowd. I wasn't paying attention to them at all. You know what I mean? Like the first year I was really nervous with it. I mean, I think less nervous than most people, but still for me nervous.
Yeah.
And then I got into looking at people's heads, the top of people's heads, and that was tricking myself. Like it was like a pretend eye contact.
Yeah.
And then I started actually making eye contact. And then I got really comfortable where it's like
I think the eye contact helps.
It for sure does.
You can see who's really digging what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
until you find the one person who hates you.
Or they're like, they're stink eye on you.
Yeah. And then you're just fascinated, like, why does that? What did I say that person doesn't like? I'm up here killing. I'm doing my job. Why are they not doing their job? And then you think about it for 4 years. You know what I mean?